The lawyer's office smelled like old paper and expensive cologne. I sat in the leather chair, hands folded in my lap, while Harrison Webb shuffled through documents announcing my mother's final wishes. My sister Clarissa sat across from me, perfectly composed in her black dress, dabbing at tears that weren't really there. Mom had died 3 weeks ago, and I cried myself empty already. Now I just felt numb, waiting to hear what she'd left behind. Harrison cleared his throat and began reading. To my daughter Clarissa, I leave the house in Palm Springs, the investment accounts totaling $400,000, and all jewelry and personal effects. My heart started pounding. He kept reading, listing more assets for Clarissa, then some charitable donations, then provisions for Mom's cat. My name never came up. Not once. I sat there, frozen, as Harrison finished the document and looked up at me with something like pity in his eyes. "I'm sorry, Alex," he said quietly. "Your mother was very clear about her wishes." Clarissa wouldn't meet my eyes. She gathered her papers, mumbled something about needing air, and left. I stayed in that chair for 10 minutes after everyone else had gone, staring at the wall, trying to understand how I'd become invisible to my own mother. The drive home was a blur. I kept replaying every moment of my relationship with Mom, searching for the reason she'd erase me from her will. I'd always been a dependable one, the kid who never caused trouble, who called every Sunday, who showed up when she needed help. Clarissa was a golden child, the one with a fancy marketing job and a wealthy husband, but I thought Mom loved us equally. Apparently, I was wrong. I pulled into my apartment complex and sat in the parking lot, engine off, watching the sunset behind the buildings. My phone buzzed with a text from Clarissa. I'm sure she had her reasons. Don't take it personally. Don't take it personally. How else was I supposed to take being completely excluded from my mother's final statement about who mattered in her life? I climbed the stairs to my second-floor apartment, unlocked the door, and looked around at my modest space. I'd been working as an accountant for 7 years, making decent money but nothing spectacular. I lived simply, saved carefully, and tried to be good to people. Apparently, none of that was enough. That night, I made a decision. I wouldn't beg for explanations or wallow in self-pity. I'd focus on building something real, something that proved my worth even if Mom never saw it. Monday morning, I sat at my desk reviewing client portfolios and realized something. I'd been managing other people's money for years, watching their investments grow, but I'd barely touched my own savings. I had $32,000 in a basic savings account, earning practically nothing. It was time to change that. I started small, researching companies, reading financial reports during lunch breaks, learning everything I could about strategic investing. My first purchase was $5,000 in a tech startup that made software for hospitals. Everyone said it was risky, but I'd analyzed their growth potential and believed in their product. 3 months later, that investment had grown by 18%. The second investment was in renewable energy, a solar panel company expanding into developing countries. Another win. Slowly, carefully, I built a small portfolio. I didn't tell anyone, not my co-workers, not my friends, definitely not Clarissa. This was mine, something I was creating without anyone's approval or input. At night, instead of watching television, I studied market trends and economic indicators. On weekends, I attended investment seminars and networking events. The work was hard, but it gave me purpose. 6 months after Mom's was read, my portfolio had grown to $58,000. It wasn't life-changing money, but it was proof that I could do this. The hardest part wasn't the investing. It was watching Mom's house sit empty while Clarissa decided what to do with it. She'd text me occasionally, asking random questions about Mom's habits or preferences, like I was some kind of consultant instead of her sister. Did Mom like the garden furniture? Where did she keep her tax records? I answered because I couldn't help myself, but each message felt like a reminder that I hadn't been worthy of anything in Mom's eyes. One evening, Clarissa called with a real problem. The house needed a new roof, and she didn't have the cash to cover it immediately. "Could you loan me $15,000?" she asked, as if it were nothing. "I'll pay you back when I sell the place." I looked at my investment dashboard showing $73,000 in total value. I could have helped her easily, but something stopped me. I don't have that kind of money available right now, I said. It wasn't entirely a lie. The money was invested, growing, working for my future. Clarissa sighed dramatically. Fine, I'll figure something else out. After she hung up, I felt guilty for about 5 minutes. Then I remembered sitting in Harrison's office, hearing that I meant so little to Mom that she couldn't spare a single item for me. The guilt faded. My portfolio kept growing. By the end of my first year of serious investing, my portfolio had reached $147,000. I'd gotten better at identifying opportunities, more confident in my decisions. I diversified into real estate investment trusts, international markets, and a few carefully chosen individual stocks. The money felt like validation, proof that I had value even if Mom never recognized it. I still worked my regular job, managing client accounts with the same dedication I always had. But now I had this secret world where I was building something significant, something that belonged only to me. My boss, Howard, noticed a change in my confidence. "You seem different lately," he said during a quarterly review. "More assured. It's good to see." I smiled and thanked him, but didn't explain. How could I tell him that my mother's rejection had somehow freed me to focus completely on my own success? That being left out of her had been the push I needed to stop seeking approval and start building my own empire? The irony wasn't lost on me. Mom had excluded me because she thought I'd never amount to anything special. Now I was proving her wrong, and she'd never know it. That thought should have made me sad, but instead it fueled me to work harder, invest smarter, grow faster. 18 months after Mom's death, I received an email that changed everything. The National Investment Conference was looking for speakers to present on unconventional wealth-building strategies. They'd noticed my name through some financial forums where I'd been sharing insights. Would I be interested in presenting? My heart raced as I read the invitation. Speaking at NIC was huge, the kind of opportunity that could open doors I'd never imagined. But it also meant exposure, revealing the success I'd been keeping private. I sat with a decision for 3 days. Part of me wanted to stay hidden, to keep building wealth in secret. But another part recognized this as a chance to establish myself as a legitimate voice in the investment world. I accepted the invitation. The conference was 4 months away, giving me time to prepare. I worked on my presentation after hours, refining my message about patient, strategic investing. I focused on the emotional discipline required to build wealth, the importance of believing in yourself even when others don't. I didn't mention Mom or the will, but those experiences shaped every word of my presentation. When I finally told Clarissa about the speaking engagement, her response was predictably dismissive. "That's nice," she said. "I didn't know you were into that stuff." She had no idea how deep my involvement actually went. The conference was held in Chicago, in a massive hotel with crystal chandeliers and important-looking people everywhere. I'd never felt more out of place in my life. My presentation was scheduled for the second day, in a medium-sized ballroom that could hold 300 people. I expected maybe 50 to show up. The room was packed. I stood backstage, palms sweating, wondering if I'd made a terrible mistake. Then I walked out to the podium, looked at all those faces waiting to hear what I had to say, and something clicked. I wasn't that person sitting in Harrison's office anymore, devastated by rejection. I was someone who'd built something real. For 45 minutes, I talked about strategic investing, about starting small and building methodically, about the psychology of patience in a world demanding instant results. I shared numbers and strategies, but kept my personal story vague. The audience was engaged, taking notes, nodding along. When I finished, the applause felt genuine. During the Q&A session, a man in the front row stood up. "What you're describing requires significant capital to implement effectively. How did you personally get started?" I smiled. "I started with $5,000 and a lot of research. You don't need to be wealthy to begin building wealth. You just need discipline and patience." After my presentation, several people approached me with questions and business cards. One man stood out from the crowd. Malcolm Torres, founder of Torres Investment Group, one of the most respected firms in the country. "You have a gift for making complex strategies accessible," he said, shaking my hand. Have you ever considered partnership opportunities? My mouth went dry. Malcolm Torres was a legend. I'm open to conversations. I managed to say. We exchanged information, and he promised to follow up as I flew home from Chicago. I couldn't stop thinking about the possibilities. But reality hit hard when I landed. Clarissa had left 3 voicemails. Mom's house still hadn't sold, and she was struggling with the maintenance costs. She needed money again. I know you said you didn't have cash before, her message said, but this is getting desperate. The property taxes are due, and I'm drowning here. I looked at my portfolio, now worth $236,000 after recent gains. I could help her easily. But every time I considered it, I remembered that while reading, remembered being erased from Mom's final testament. If I helped Clarissa now, would I just be enabling the same dynamic where my worth was measured by what I could provide rather than who I was? I called her back. I still don't have liquid cash available. I'm sorry. 3 months after the conference, Clarissa showed up at my apartment unannounced. She looked tired, older than her 36 years. Can I come in? She asked. We sat in my small living room, and she explained the full extent of her problems. Her husband had lost his job. They'd been living beyond their means for years, and now the bills were piling up. Mom's house was finally in escrow, but the sale wouldn't close for another 2 months. I need help, she said, her voice breaking. Just a loan to get through until the house sells. $20,000. I felt the old guilt rising. She was my sister. She was struggling, and I had the means to help. But then she said something that changed my mind. Mom always said you were a practical one, the one who'd never take risks or do anything impressive. I guess she was right, since you're working the same boring job, living in this tiny place. She looked around my apartment with barely concealed disdain. Have you made anything of yourself? The words hit like a slap. She had no idea what I'd built, what I'd accomplished. And suddenly, I didn't want to tell her. I'm doing fine, I said calmly. But I can't help you with the money. You'll have to figure something else out. She left angry, slamming my door hard enough to rattle the pictures on the wall. After Clarissa left, I threw myself deeper into investing. I'd been researching commercial real estate, and I found an opportunity that excited me. A small office building in an up-and-coming neighborhood, being sold by an owner who needed to relocate quickly. The price was reasonable, and the rental income would provide steady cash flow. I bought it, using most of my liquid savings as a down payment, and securing a mortgage for the rest. It was my first major real estate investment, and it terrified me. But within 3 months, I had the building fully leased to small businesses. The monthly income covered the mortgage and provided extra cash for reinvestment. My portfolio continued growing, $347,000. Then I overheard something that made my blood boil. I was at the grocery store when I saw Clarissa's friend Paula in the produce section. She was talking loudly on her phone, not noticing me nearby. Clarissa's sister is useless, Paula said, living in that sad little apartment, working some dead-end job. Their mother was right to leave everything to Clarissa. At least she tried to make something of her life. I stood there frozen, holding a bag of apples. So that was why Mom had excluded me from the will. She thought I was a failure, someone who'd never amount to anything worth acknowledging. The pain was sharp and immediate, but so was my determination. I would keep building, keep growing, keep proving that worth wasn't measured by appearances. 6 months later, Clarissa called again. The house had finally sold, but after paying off Mom's debts and the mortgage, she barely cleared a profit. Her husband was still unemployed. Their savings were gone. I'm desperate, she said, her pride finally cracking. I need your help. Please. I've been expecting this call. My portfolio had reached $492,000. I could afford to help, but I wasn't sure I should. What kind of help are you looking for? I asked. A loan, $50,000 to get us through the next year while things stabilize. I thought about it for a long time. Finally, I said, I'll help you on one condition. You let me advise you on your finances. You follow my guidance on budgeting and investing. She hesitated. You? No offense, but What do you know about financial planning? I smiled despite myself. More than you think. Take it or leave it, Clarissa. She took it. I transferred the money the next day, then set up a meeting to review her complete financial situation. When I saw the mess she'd made, spending on luxury items while drowning in debt, I understood why Mom had left everything to her. Mom had been trying to give Clarissa a safety net, not a reward. She thought I didn't need help because I was stable and responsible. Ironically, that stability had been invisible to her, less impressive than Clarissa's flashy lifestyle. I helped Clarissa create a budget and payment plan, but I didn't tell her where my $50,000 had come from. As far as she knew, I'd taken out a loan or borrowed from my retirement. The truth was more complicated. I'd liquidated some investments and used credit strategically, knowing I could repay it quickly from my rental income. But revealing my actual financial position felt dangerous. I wasn't ready for that conversation. The guilt of keeping secrets weighed on me, though. Every time Clarissa thanked me for the help, I wondered if I should just tell her the truth. But then I'd remember her dismissive comments about my boring life, and I'd stay quiet. Let her think what she wanted. Meanwhile, my portfolio kept growing. I'd gotten better at identifying undervalued properties and companies. By the end of that year, I'd passed $600,000. The following spring brought new opportunities. Malcolm Torres reached out about a partnership, wanted to bring me on as a consultant for his firm. The contract would pay me $150,000 annually, plus bonuses based on performance. I accepted immediately. Within 18 months of starting that role, my total assets crossed $1 million. I was a millionaire, and nobody in my life knew it except my financial advisor and the bank. My 30th birthday arrived on a Tuesday. I celebrated alone in my apartment, eating takeout and reviewing my investment portfolio. Total assets, $1.3 million. I owned 3 rental properties, had substantial positions in various stocks and funds, and maintained a growing cash reserve. I'd built something extraordinary, and the only person who knew was me. That night, I thought about Mom for the first time in weeks. I wondered what she would think if she could see what I'd accomplished. Would she be proud? Would she regret excluding me from her will? Or would she find some way to diminish it, to make my success seem small compared to Clarissa's more visible achievements? The what-ifs kept me awake until dawn. Over the next 2 years, my wealth exploded. Smart investments in emerging technologies, strategic real estate purchases in gentrifying neighborhoods, and careful management of risk all combined to push my portfolio past $5 million. Then $7 million. Then $9 million. I was living the same simple life, driving the same old car, working the same job with Torres Investment Group. But underneath that ordinary exterior, I'd become someone else entirely. Someone Mom would never recognize. When my portfolio hit $10 million, I sat in my home office and cried. Not from joy, but from the complexity of it all. I'd proven myself, exceeded every possible measure of success, and the person whose approval I'd wanted most was gone. Clarissa called with another crisis. Her marriage was falling apart, and she needed money for a lawyer. I'd helped her twice before, and she'd mostly paid me back, though never completely. How much? I asked, tired already. $35,000. I know it's a lot, but you're the only person I can turn to. I thought about saying no, about letting her figure out herself. But something in her voice stopped me. She sounded genuinely broken, not just financially, but emotionally. I'll help you, I said, but this is the last time. After this, you need to stand on your own. She promised she would. I transferred the money, then offered her something more valuable. Advice? I'd spent years studying not just investments, but personal finance, the psychology of money, the patterns that keep people trapped in poverty or debt. Will you listen if I try to help you rebuild? I asked. I guess, she said, skeptical. What do you know about rebuilding anything? The question stung, but I pushed past it. More than you'd think. Trust me on this. She agreed reluctantly, and we started meeting monthly to review her finances. Slowly, painfully, she began making better decisions. But she still saw me as her boring little sister, who somehow had a knack for numbers, not as someone who'd built an empire. 2 months into helping Clarissa, I hit my breaking point. We were meeting at a coffee shop, reviewing her budget, when she made a comment that pushed me over the edge. "I appreciate your help," she said, "but let's be honest. You've never had a struggle like I have. You've never taken risks or built anything real. It's easy to give advice when you've lived such a safe, small life." I set down my coffee cup carefully, trying to control my anger. "You think I've lived a safe, small life?" "Well, yeah. Same apartment, same job, same routine. You're like Mom was, content with mediocrity. That's probably why she left everything to me. She knew I had ambition. That was it, the final straw. Mom left everything to you because she thought you needed help, not because she respected you more." I said, my voice shaking. "And you know nothing about my life or what I built." Clarissa laughed. "Built? What have you built?" I stood up, gathered my papers. "More than you can imagine. But you've never bothered to ask, never cared to look past your own assumptions. I'm done trying to prove myself to you." I walked out of that coffee shop and decided it was time. Time to stop hiding. Time to stop protecting everyone else's feelings about my success. Time to tell the truth. 3 weeks later, my portfolio hit exactly $10 million. I'd crossed the threshold from millionaire to truly wealthy, from successful to financially independent for life. I could quit my job tomorrow and live comfortably on investment income alone. Instead, I kept working, kept building, kept pushing toward goals I was still defining. But I also made a decision. I scheduled dinner with Clarissa at a nice restaurant, somewhere public and neutral. I needed to tell her the truth, needed her to understand what I'd accomplished. The night of the dinner, I dressed carefully, choosing an outfit that reflected my success without being showy. When I arrived, Clarissa was already there, looking nervous. "What's this about?" she asked as I sat down. "I need to tell you something," I said. "Something I should have told you a long time ago." Over the next hour, I laid it all out. The initial investments, the growing portfolio, the real estate purchases, the consulting work with Torres Investment Group, the current value of my assets. $10 million. Clarissa's face went through a dozen emotions. Disbelief, shock, confusion, and finally something that looked like horror. "You're lying," she said. "There's no way you have that kind of money." I pulled out my phone and showed her my investment dashboard, the numbers stark and undeniable. Her hand went to her mouth. "Oh my God!" The restaurant felt too small suddenly, too public for the conversation we were having. Clarissa stared at the numbers on my phone screen, her face pale. "How?" she whispered. "How is this possible?" I explained everything. The systematic investing, the careful research, the risks that paid off, and the lessons learned from failures. The years of patient accumulation, reinvestment, and strategic growth. "I built this," I said, "while you were dismissing me, while Mom was excluding me from her will, while everyone assumed I was just another boring accountant. I built an empire." Tears started streaming down Clarissa's face. I had no idea. All this time, I thought you were struggling, that you were helping me out of some kind of sisterly obligation despite your own limited means. "I was helping you because you're my sister. But yes, I could afford it easily." She wiped her eyes. "And I spent the whole time treating you like you were beneath me, like you'd never accomplished anything worth respecting." The regret in her voice was real, painful to hear. "Why didn't you tell me?" I've been asking myself that question for years. Because I needed to prove it to myself first. And because I was angry. Angry at Mom for leaving me out. Angry at you for assuming I was less than you. Angry at everyone who saw me as boring and predictable. The money was mine, my secret, my proof that I mattered. Clarissa couldn't stop apologizing. At the restaurant, in the parking lot, through text messages late that night. "I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Please forgive me." I sat with her apologies, trying to figure out what I actually felt. The vindication was there, sweet and strong. But so was sadness. Sadness that it had taken $10 million for my own sister to see my worth. Sadness that Mom had died thinking I was unremarkable. sadness that I'd spent years hiding my success because I was afraid of being diminished again. The next morning, Clarissa called. Can we talk? Really talk, not just me apologizing. We met at a park, walking the trails while she spoke. Mom made a mistake, she said. Leaving you out of the will was wrong. She was operating on old information, old assumptions about who you were. She thought you were stable and I was fragile, so she tried to protect me. But she didn't see what you were becoming. She didn't see me at all, I said. Neither did you. Clarissa nodded. You're right. I was so caught up in my own problems, my own image of success, that I couldn't see what was right in front of me. You were building something real while I was just spending money, trying to look successful. The honesty was painful but necessary. We walked in silence for a while, both processing years of misunderstanding and hurt. After that conversation, things between Clarissa and me began to shift. She asked if she could still come to our monthly financial meetings, but with a new attitude. Teach me, she said. Really teach me. Not just how to budget, but how to build what you've built. I agreed, but with conditions. This time, you have to respect my advice. No more dismissing what I say because you think I don't understand your life. She agreed immediately. Over the following months, we worked together to rebuild her financial foundation. I taught her about investing, about patience and discipline, about seeing money as a tool rather than a status symbol. She was a better student than I expected, hungry to learn, willing to admit what she didn't know. But I couldn't give her everything. Some things had to be earned through experience, through the slow, hard work of changing your mindset. Meanwhile, I continued managing my portfolio. Now that the secret was out, at least with Clarissa, I felt freer to make bigger moves. I invested in several startup companies, bought 2 more rental properties, and took on additional consulting clients through Torres Investment Group. My wealth kept growing, 11 million, 12 million, climbing toward 15. But money wasn't the point anymore. The point was building something meaningful, using my success to create opportunities for others. 6 months after revealing my portfolio to Clarissa, something unexpected happened. She started succeeding on her own. She'd followed my advice, invested carefully with the small amount she could spare, and built her own modest portfolio. $27,000. Tiny compared to mine, but earned through her own discipline and patience. I finally understand, she said during one of our meetings. It's not about the amount. It's about proving to yourself that you can do it, that you have value beyond what other people assign to you. I smiled. Exactly. Our relationship transformed into something neither of us had expected. Genuine partnership. She brought clients to me through her social networks, people who needed investment advice and wealth management. I helped her understand market dynamics and strategic planning. We complemented each other's strengths instead of competing. One evening, she brought up Mom's will again. I've been thinking, she said carefully, about how unfair it was. I want to split what I inherited with you. I shook my head. I don't need Mom's money. I never did. What I needed was her respect, her acknowledgement that I mattered. But she's gone, and I've found my own way to prove my worth. Clarissa's eyes filled with tears. You deserve better than what she gave you, what we all gave you. Clarissa's transformation continued, slowly but steadily. She started to understand that real success wasn't about appearances or status symbols, but about building something sustainable and meaningful. She respected my advice now, actually listened instead of just waiting for her turn to talk. One day, she mentioned something that shocked me. I'm rewriting my will, she said. If something happens to me, I want you to be the executor. I want you to make decisions about my kids' financial future. I'd never thought about being trusted with something so important. Are you sure? You're the only person I trust to do it right. You understand what matters. The irony wasn't lost on either of us. Mom had excluded me from her will because she didn't think I was responsible or successful enough. Now Clarissa wanted me to manage her children's inheritance because she finally saw what I'd built, but something still bothered me. Do you ever wonder what Mom would think? I asked if she could see what I've accomplished. Clarissa thought for a moment. I think she'd be proud, and I think she'd regret her decision. But mostly, I think she'd be amazed that you did all of this without her approval or support. That's real strength." Her words meant more than she probably realized. I'd spent years chasing validation that would never come. Mom was gone. Her opinion was frozen in time, preserved in that way that had hurt me so deeply. But I'd moved beyond it. 2 years after revealing my $10 million portfolio to Clarissa, my net worth had climbed to $18 million. I'd expanded my real estate holdings, invested in several successful tech startups, and built a reputation as one of the most insightful financial advisors in Malcolm's firm. My life looked completely different now, though I still lived modestly. I'd upgraded to a nicer apartment, but nothing ostentatious. I drove a reliable car, but not a luxury vehicle. I didn't need external symbols of wealth because I was secure in what I'd built. Clarissa had become my closest friend and confidant. We talked several times a week, worked together on various projects, and supported each other through life's challenges. She'd rebuilt her life after her divorce, found a good job, and was raising her kids with focus on values rather than appearances. One afternoon, she called with an unexpected request. "I want to start a financial literacy program for women," she said. "Teaching them what you taught me about investing and building wealth. Would you be willing to help?" I loved the idea immediately. We spent the next 6 months developing curriculum, finding funding, and recruiting participants. The program launched with 20 women, all of them eager to learn how to take control of their financial futures. Teaching them was one of the most rewarding experiences of my life. Watching their confidence grow as they made their first investments, as they started to see possibilities they'd never imagined, reminded me of my own journey. 3 years after Mom's death, Clarissa and I visited her grave together. We stood in silence for a while, both processing everything that had happened since that day in Harrison's office. "I think about what I'd say to her if I could," Clarissa said quietly. "I'd tell her she was wrong about you, that you were the stronger one, the one who built something real, without needing anyone's permission or approval." I knelt down and touched Mom's headstone. "I'd tell her I forgive her," I said, "that I understand she made decisions based on limited information and old fears. She thought stability was the same as stagnation, that my quiet strength was actually weakness. She was wrong, but I don't blame her for it anymore." We sat on the grass, talking about Mom, about our childhood, about all the complicated dynamics that had shaped our family. For the first time, we could talk honestly without defensiveness or competition. "Do you think she'd be proud of us now?" Clarissa asked. "I think she'd be surprised," I said. "Surprised that I built an empire. Surprised that you learned to value substance over appearance. Surprised that we became real sisters instead of rivals." Clarissa leaned against my shoulder. "I'm proud of us. That has to count for something." It counted for everything. Mom's approval would have been nice, but it wasn't necessary anymore. I'd found my own validation, built my own success, created my own definition of worth. 5 years after being excluded from Mom's will, I made a decision that would have seemed impossible back then. I established a foundation with $2 million, focused on supporting women building businesses and investments. Clarissa joined as co-director, bringing her passion for education and her growing financial expertise. We called it the Gloria Foundation, after Mom, not because she supported us in this work, but because her mistakes had taught us valuable lessons about seeing people clearly, about not judging work by appearances, about the importance of believing in people even when their success doesn't look conventional. The Foundation's first year, we helped 43 women launch investment portfolios and start small businesses. We provided education, mentorship, and seed funding. Watching them succeed, watching them discover their own strength and capability, felt like the best possible use of my wealth. Clarissa and I work together seamlessly now, our different strengths combining to create something neither of us could have built alone. She was the face of the foundation, warm and approachable, connecting with participants on an emotional level. I was the strategy and financial backbone, ensuring we made smart decisions and sustainable growth. One evening, after a foundation event, Clarissa hugged me tightly. "Thank you for not giving up on me," she said, "for seeing past my mistakes and helping me become better. Thank you for finally seeing me." I replied, "Today, my portfolio is worth $23 million. I live comfortably but not extravagantly. Work because I love it rather than because I need to, and spend most of my time helping others build their own financial futures. The foundation has expanded to serve over 200 women annually. I've written a book about strategic investing that became a bestseller. Malcolm promoted me to partner at Torres Investment Group. But the real success isn't measured in dollars or titles. It's measured in relationships rebuilt, in understanding earned, in the peace that comes from knowing your worth regardless of external validation. Clarissa and I visit Mom's grave together every year on the anniversary of her death. We bring flowers, share updates about our lives, and talk about what we've learned. Last year, Clarissa brought something unexpected, a letter she'd found in Mom's belongings while cleaning out storage. It was addressed to me, dated 2 weeks before Mom died. In shaky handwriting, Mom had written, "Alex, I need to change my will. I was wrong about you. You're stronger than I ever gave you credit for. I'm proud of you." She'd never made it to the lawyer's office to make those changes. But knowing she'd seen me, finally, after all those years, brought a closure I didn't know I needed. I folded the letter carefully and put it in my wallet, where I still carry it today. Not as proof of my worth, but as a reminder that people can change their minds, that understanding can come even when it's too late, and that forgiveness heals more than holding on to pain. I built my empire to prove I mattered. But in the end, I learned that I'd always mattered, with or without the money, with or without Mom's approval. That's the lesson I carry with me every day. The truth that no portfolio balance can change. Your worth isn't determined by what others see. It's determined by what you build, who you help, and how you choose to live when no one's watching.